Be honest. Have you ever seen, heard, or felt something that stuck with you, and then you spent years convincing yourself it was nothing? Why is this such a common experience? Why does this question make people so uncomfortable? Hello, my paranormal peeps. My name is Matt Harvey. I am the founder of Deep Woods Paranormal. I'm also the host of the Deep Woods Paranormal podcast. On today's podcast, we're going to talk about 8 talking points. The moment it happened, the immediate rationalization, the details that didn't fit, why most people never talk about it. Years later, the memory returns. The personal cost of dismissing it. What happens if you hadn't talked to yourself out of it? Common experiences people don't realize they are shared. And lastly, at the end of the video, I'll invite you guys to share your stories on the paranormal where you dismissed it, and basically now looking back, you go, well, you know what? That could have been or could not have been, and I'm still on the fence. I just don't know. Maybe you're a skeptic. Most skeptics are like this, where you think you saw something, you heard something, you felt something strange happened that you just can't explain, and your brain has rationalized it, right? So let's get into these talking points. The moment it happened. I've had a lot of these experiences over the years. My most famous one probably would be all the Bigfoot encounters I had that led up to my first sighting 8 years later. This started at Black Star Canyon for me. It happened with me seeing what I thought was a shadow person that was about 6, 7, 8 feet tall, squatted down on the side of the road, and essentially then it 3-stepped the road, and then what we thought disappeared, and later figured out, no, it didn't disappear. It walked behind a tree and probably was sitting back there watching us. Then there was the tree knocks that happened up at Black Star Canyon. I just wrote them off as possible gunshots. Hearing other noises, weird, strange noises I couldn't explain. Possibly seeing Bigfoots. I can't remember how many accounts I've had where I saw shadows or something running across the road. Could this be a Bigfoot? Basically stepping over the fence and running across the road to get to the other side before I got there. Could I have walked in on a possible, event happening? Maybe they were hunting for deer. Maybe they were migrating. Maybe they were doing something up there that night. Maybe they were bedded down on one side of the road, and as I came up, I disturbed them, and little by little, they went across the road and disappeared. And this goes with ghost hunting too. I mean, I've been to a lot of places. As you guys know, if you listen for a long period of time, we started out as a TAPS family member team, and our first training with them was basically spending 2-3 hours just debunking everything. And how much of that stuff that we debunked was actually possibly paranormal activity? What left questions in my mind? What were, could some of that have actually been paranormal activity? Is some of the stuff that we're writing off, is that actually a ghost or something else trying to communicate with us? And, you can put this with anything. Some of my Bigfoot encounters could have been dogman encounters. That I know of, I've never seen a dogman. And I can't say I have or haven't. Some of my encounters could have been a dogman. From the howling we heard. The screams and howls that we heard. I don't know much about Dogman. I'm still learning. I have a lot of friends that are into big Dogman, and I'm always watching their content and trying to learn as much as I can about them, so that if I ever do actually see one, I know how best to essentially, be ready for that and stuff. But so these experiences, let's just put ghosts in here, usually start out subtly. You hear a knocking and you go, okay, that didn't feel paranormal. And so you're like, okay, there's something in the wall. Maybe there's an animal in the wall, or there's something else going on. Maybe the neighbors, maybe if you live in an apartment complex, which has a lot of paranormal activity usually, or you live in a a subdivision, where maybe you live in a condo and your walls are connected. You're like, oh, that dang neighbor. Like this happened to me. We had lived in an apartment complex, and I was basically a nighttime manager at a restaurant. I come home, and it was probably about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and I just lay down to sleep. I'd just fallen asleep. Then I hear what sounds like a band practicing next door. It was loud, and it went on for like an hour. And I knew the neighbor basically liked music and stuff like that, and they were really nice. We were good friends with them. And so I called the front office of the apartment complex, and I asked them, hey, I don't want to get them in trouble or anything like that. Can you tell them to please stop, turn the music down, or if they're practicing, that's fine, but ask them to, maybe stop for an hour or two so I can get some sleep. And the lady comes on, she goes, I don't know what you're talking about. They moved out like 2 months ago. And I'm like, what? And so I'm like, are they cleaning over there? Maybe they're just cleaning the apartment. Maybe they have the music on. No, sir, there's nobody in that apartment. um, and that was for me. It's always been more shocking than fear, mostly for me. It's like, okay. But there are little subtle things where you see a shadow and you go, okay, well, that was just this. Or you see something move and your brain goes, no, 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 that couldn't have been paranormal. This goes back to my torments as a kid. If you ever listened to the very first few podcasts we did, I spent a lot of time talking about my childhood encounters with ghosts and how I used to try and rationalize what it was so I wasn't so scared of it. And like the closet door opening, my mom used to try and tell me, it was just the cat going into the closet or something. And we didn't have a cat at that point in time. But she was, that my parents would just kind of rationalize it this way or that way. So rational, the brain basically wants to rationalize what's happening because it's not normal for you. Again, the paranormal, being the paranormal not being normal. For you, I mean, if you've experienced something paranormal, or if your mind's going, you know what, that sounds familiar at this point. I might have had a paranormal experience. I might have experienced a ghost, or maybe I experienced a Bigfoot. Maybe I was out hunting. Maybe I heard something that maybe it was a Bigfoot or a dogman. Or maybe I was out on the boat and I might have seen something or heard something in the water that could have been a river monster or a lake monster. Maybe you've seen something in the sky that was just, you rationalized it to a large bird or a plane or something else, right? Let me ask you this. What was the first thing you guys noticed if you've had this encounter? I'm sure a lot of you have, especially if you're listening to this. Did your body react before your mind did? Did you get the chills? Did you get goosebumps? Did you feel like, you know what, I don't think I should be here. Should I need to leave? Did you get like an upset stomach, a headache? All these things can be contributed to possible paranormal activity. Did you feel distorted or slow? Did your time frame kind of slow down? Are you have any kind of missing time? Did you feel watched or followed or singled out? This usually pertains to like Bigfoot activity, or sometimes when people are more open, or as people call them, sensitive or whatever, they experience something. They might see something, hear something, feel something, smell something, hear something in their head. Like a voice saying something to them, or something trying to talk to them mentally, telepathically, if you will. This could all be signs of paranormal activity. And, this kind of goes a little bit more towards me. I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there that are the same way, where you can walk into somewhere and you're like, there's just something off about this place. I mean, Amanda's that way too. She can tell when there's something negative or not right with the location. Sometimes she picks it up more than I do. But you walk in and there's no activity. You don't see anything, you don't hear anything, you don't feel anything. And then all of a sudden you're just like, I feel like I'm being watched. Why do I feel like I'm being watched? And as you're moving through this location, whether it's a forest or a a shopping mall, or maybe you're driving through an area in a car, and it just feels creepy to you, or you're walking through, a house or something like that. You're maybe at a friend's house and you're like, there's just something not right about this place. Or maybe you're touring somewhere you've never been before, and you're just like, this just seems off. Basically, tell us below, what did you experience? And again, there's no right or wrong answer. And this goes for skeptics too. I mean, we have people that are on the fence, we have people that are skeptic, and we have people that are believers on this channel, and everybody in between. I'm sure some of you experienced something paranormal that you just didn't understand. So let's talk about the immediate rationalization of these things. The brain's need for safety and logic. The first thing, when you get into a location, you're just like, this place feels creepy. I've got the goosebumps. I feel like I'm being watched. And then you're like, okay, but there's nobody here. I'm by myself, or I'm with my friends, or I'm with my family. Nothing's going to happen. I'm just imagining things, right? And then, basically your brain's just trying to tell you it's okay. You're safe. And then basically you go into survival mode, and you're like, you're on guard. You're watching, you're looking around to see what it was. If you hear something, feel something, experience something, and you're trying to tell yourself, if you're in the forest or whatever, it was an animal, right? You hear something walking, you hear crunch, 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 and you're like, I don't know what that was, but it has to be an animal. It couldn't be a Bigfoot or a dog man or something like cryptid that's out here with me, right? You might see a shadow, and you're like, okay, that was just somebody else in the woods, and you're trying to rationalize it. Or you hear a noise, like a whistling, or you hear what sounds kind of like a bird or something like that, and you're like, okay, that's just the wind. Or is it just my imagination? Is my brain trying to come up with some kind of explanation for this that seems logical? And at that point in time, you basically are just trying to feel safe at that point in time, because it's scary. I mean, imagine if you do see a Bigfoot or something else out there, or you see a shadow person and you've never seen one, and you're really not into this field, or you're not into it yet. How scary that could be. I mean, imagine that. Imagine if you actually have a paranormal experience, but your brain's like, no, that can't be real. And this goes towards, and I'm not picking on you skeptics, it goes towards the skeptics. They have to feel safe. They need something to rationalize to feel safe. But I do love skeptics because they keep you honest too. Skeptics will rationalize everything to the point where nothing's paranormal. And some people are just, doesn't matter if a Bigfoot walked out of the woods and basically stood right in front of them, they'd find another reason for it to be something else, right? Or a ghost appears in front of them, or a UFO came and landed, and a little green man hopped out, or a gray man hopped out and came up and tapped him on the shoulder. It doesn't matter. No matter what, those people are going to be skeptic no matter what. It never happened. They just will not let it happen. But for the rest of us, there's people, all I ask is everybody be open-minded to the paranormal. Anyways, do you feel like once you've explained it away, you feel better? Did you want the experience to be true? Comment down below. What would you do when you start to try and rationalize things? Are you looking for real explanations? Are you trying to debunk? Are you trying to figure out what it is? What goes through your head when you have an experience like this? All right. So let's talk about the details that didn't fit. So small details that never quite made some sense to you. Why did that thing move? You went over there, you picked the glass up, it slid across the table. You pick it up, there's no condensation underneath it. The table's not slanted in any way that you can see. Maybe you went so far as to go get a level to check the level of the table to make sure it's not slanted. Nobody touched that table, and I'm just using an example here, guys. That glass was full, and some of it spilled out as it kind of slid across the table, or maybe it didn't. What made that? Let's go into a little bit better explanation. You're in a house, right? You're with your friend, and he says, "Oh yeah, my house is haunted." And you're like, "Yeah, right. I don't believe in that stuff." And as you're sitting there, you hear footsteps. Maybe you hear a door open and close, and then you hear a footstep. Coming up the stairway, and you didn't hear the garage door. Your friend's like, "Hey, that's weird." And the garage door usually opens and closes when my mom comes home, right? Or when my friend comes home or my wife comes home or whatever, usually we come through the garage door. But you're hearing footsteps. You hear the door close, you're hearing footsteps, and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, is this just, me imagining things? But it doesn't make sense. How could there have been footsteps, but there was nobody there? And you go down and you look, and you're looking around the house, you're like, hey, wife, hey, husband, hey, son, hey, daughter, hey, friend, and there's nobody there, and you're looking around, and you're going, well, what in the world? What just happened? And then basically your brain goes, well, you know what? We're in the middle of watching a scary movie. Maybe I rationalized, or maybe we were playing a video game, and basically maybe it came from the video game, or maybe we just thought we heard footsteps. But then you go back years later, and you're like, you know what? There wasn't any footsteps on the game, or there wasn't any noise like that from the movie, and you just can't put two and two together. So your brain's kind of like reliving the experience, and you're like trying to figure out what exactly happened, and maybe you can't go back to that location anymore or whatever, and you're trying to figure out exactly what happened, right? Did something move in a way, like I said, with the glass that didn't feel natural? Did the sound come from the wrong direction, like the footsteps, or maybe you heard a voice, maybe you heard like a whisper, and you're like, what the heck was that? And you're looking around and you're going, okay, I know, and we'll put an investigation in here. Let's say we're doing a paranormal investigation we're doing ghost hunting, and we're at an abandoned hotel or at an old hotel or something like that, and you know that you're the only one there, or you're at a house, a client's house, and you're walking around and you're going, what the heck was that? And you listen back on the audio and there's no audio, but then you heard something. You heard a whisper, and you're trying to figure out what that was, and nobody else heard it but you. And so your mind's trying to rationalize, like, did I really hear that? But you keep going back to it. You're like, but it seemed real at the time, right? Then animals, if there's animals in the house, maybe with you, maybe you got a dog or a cat, did they react to it too? I mean, my dogs, when we hear something in the house, the dogs will look up and react when there's paranormal activity happening in the house at night. How did the environment suddenly change? Did it get colder? Did it get warmer? Sometimes people don't realize that warm spots are also associated with paranormal activity, because that's just energy transferring. Cold is when the energy is pulled away from something, and heat is when the energy is basically coming towards something, right? Maybe whatever it is has the ability to create its own energy, or maybe there's an energy source that it's using to communicate with you, and you're feeling like a warm sensation. Did the room get louder? Did it get quieter? Did it all of a sudden go quiet, like the forest go quiet? If we're looking at Bigfoot or another kind of cryptid out there, like a dog man or whatever, did the forest, was it alive with sounds, and all of a sudden it just went completely quiet around you? Stuff like that. Think about those kind of things. So let me ask you this. If you have had something like this happen to you, what part of the experience still bothers you today? Comment down below. Matt, I was out there hunting, and the crickets were going and the birds were going, and I thought I was about to see a deer, and then everything just went quiet and the forest got eerily still. What part of that, did you experience anything after that? Did you hear footsteps? Did you hear tree branches snapping? Did anything change? Did you get the goosebumps? Did you feel like you just got to get out of there? Let me know what you experienced. I would love to hear about it. So let's talk about why most people never talk about their experiences. So, fear of ridicule. This is a big one, especially with Bigfoot out here in Texas, and I'm sure it happens throughout the rest of the country as well, but especially here from what I've been heard. A lot of witnesses will not come forward because they're afraid of being ridiculed. People out here make fun of people that have seen Bigfoot, and it's really sad. Basically people think that people will think they're crazy, or they're afraid of reopening something. Like if they have moved from one location where they had a lot of paranormal activity, maybe their house is haunted, or they had a lot of strange things happen, like I talked about the footsteps, and maybe hearing voices, and maybe having things move on their own, and maybe seeing apparitions in the house, and really living in a haunted location, doors opening and closing on their own, the footsteps walking through the halls at night when nobody's awake, stuff like that. Some people that's terrifying. I mean, I grew up with that. I had a lot of experiences with that, and I couldn't talk about it with anybody. I didn't have anybody to talk about it with. Now I've got you guys, right? So yeah, I mean, it's pretty scary when you think about it, and who are you going to tell? Now that the paranormal is so big out here, and people are okay with talking about paranormal activity and ghosts and Bigfoot and UFOs and stuff like that. I mean, we haven't really talked about UFOs, but imagine an abductee who has left a place, left a city, left a town, left a state because they've realized they've had abductions, and maybe these abductions terrify this person, right? They can't talk about it with very many other people because they're afraid of being ridiculed. People are like, you're crazy, you've never been abducted, blah, 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 blah. And so they move to a different city in a different state, maybe, or even maybe a different country to kind of get away from that in hopes that it'll stop, right? And so, I mean, can you imagine if maybe you are an abductee. Maybe you've lived in a haunted house. Maybe you've had a Bigfoot experience. Maybe you've seen, something angelic or demonic. Maybe you've seen shadow people. Maybe you've seen a lake or river monster. It's not very easy to open up and say, I've had this experience, right? So, I mean, like I said, this podcast is supposed to be a safe place for people to come and listen and talk and share their experiences without fear of ridicule. And I always take things with a grain of salt, but I also am very open to people's experiences. You have to be. These people experience something. And so, whether it's paranormal or not, they experience something that terrified them, right? So, yeah, I mean, people don't like to share that experience in public because they're afraid of the ridicule and sounding, like they're crazy, and afraid of maybe it's going to happen again, right? Okay, so years later, sometimes the memory returns. Why experiences resurface later in life? Basically, similar locations, certain smells, the sounds of night, and the quiet moments. And this could go with, maybe they saw a Bigfoot, maybe they got abducted by a UFO or aliens. Maybe they had a dogman encounter. Maybe they, lived in a haunted house that just scared the living bejesus out of them, right? Maybe they move into a house that's very similar to the house they had before, or maybe that they grew up in that had a lot of strange experiences. Maybe they meet somebody for the first time and they get invited over to their house or their apartment or their location, and it's eerily similar to where they grew up. Maybe a smell triggers it. Maybe when they were growing up, They had an experience with a Bigfoot, and they smelled that kind of wet dog slash basically it's like a skunky smell. If I'm describing it right, um, maybe they won't go into the woods because they basically experienced that. Sounds at night again. Maybe they won't go into the woods at night because they're afraid of having another Bigfoot experience. Excuse me. Maybe they or at night they basically are sleeping in bed and then they hear certain sounds that remind them of the experience they had, especially if they had a bad experience with the paranormal like I did as a kid. It took me years to get over that. And doing this podcast has kind of been a therapy for me, to be honest with you. But meeting my wife too and having her help me, and then meeting others that basically shared a lot of the same experiences as me, and then basically we turn that into a positive thing by going out and researching that and learning more about it and learning to not fear it, and then helping other people that were also experiencing the same stuff as us, and then basically being able to overturn that for them and teach them how to basically take control of it and to not let that fear, basically take control. So what about for you? If you've had any kind of paranormal experience, does a memory come back basically come back stronger within time? Does it feel clearer now than it did then? Has your brain kind of figured out the details of what happened? Do you have nightmares? Do you relive that event sometimes? Does something trigger it? Do you think that age changes how we interpret it? As you get older, a lot of the times we learn as we go, and maybe we're able to rationalize some of the things that happen. Maybe we figure out, okay, now I've heard this noise and I know exactly what that is, and it's not so scary anymore, right? Maybe that's a noise you had never heard as a kid, and then all of a sudden, as a teenager or as a young adult, you are somewhere where you hear that same experience, but other people with you, and you know exactly what that noise is now because they're telling you what it is, right? And you're seeing what it is. And basically, as you get older, maybe you're more rational about what you're experiencing. Maybe those noises that you were hearing as a kid that scared you, as an adult, you're like, okay, I'm not so worried about that because I know what that is, or I'm not. It just doesn't bother me as much, right? So my question to you is: do you think that age changes how we interpret what we experience? Maybe as we're younger, or even as we're in our middle age or older. Maybe as an older person, you have basically come to realize that wasn't the experience. What you thought you experienced wasn't really the experience you had, is what I'm saying. Anyways, so the personal cost of dismissing it. Do you trust your instincts again? Do you second guess yourself? Have you lost curiosity or awareness? For me, I started out not trusting my instincts, and I was always second guessing myself, trying to find another reason for why whatever I experienced had just happened. My loss of curiosity or awareness. My curiosity kind of went down in my teenage years, and then peaked back up, and then my awareness is way more than it ever used to be. I feel like I'm more on guard than I was as a kid. I'm not terrified of anything anymore, but I'm more alert to things going on around me, especially paranormal. So, you have to ask yourself, the same question. Do you think you dismiss the experience? Basically, did you think that dismissing it helps you feel more protected, or did it cost you something? Did you miss that opportunity to investigate that maybe a little further? Maybe it was something paranormal and you just wrote it off. So at this point in time, you're basically you can't go back to research again, right? Maybe you moved out of that house. Maybe that forest got chopped down and there's homes there now. Maybe that location burned down. Maybe it closed. Maybe it was a business or a apartment complex that you used to live at. Maybe it was an abduction where you don't live in that state anymore. I'm talking about alien abduction. You guys have to kind of think about that stuff and really kind of look back and say, okay, was I protecting myself by basically just dismissing it, or was I, basically just missing out on an opportunity maybe to explore it further? So my last question to you guys is, what if you hadn't talked yourself out of it? This is a powerful thought, right? What if? The what ifs. We always have the what ifs. What if I had just done this? What if I had just done that? What if? Basically, what if, you had checked it out, and what if you hadn't talked yourself out of it? How would your beliefs have changed your perception of what happened? Would you have investigated it further? Would fear have taken over? Would curiosity have grown? So for me, like I said, it wasn't until I met my wife at 19, that basically my beliefs changed my perception, right? I did start to investigate it further. My fear basically stayed with me, but not as much, and has diminished over time. Now I'm more in control of that fear. I have more control of I'm not going to just turn and run if I see something. I'm going to investigate it further. And my curiosity definitely has grown into these things. Like I always say, my life's like the X-Files. The more I delve into this, the crazier it gets. This rabbit hole is deep, and just seems like it's a bottomless pit the more I delve into it. So I leave you with this question. If it happened again tomorrow, would you react the same way? Maybe you're older now. Maybe you're, a little bit wiser. Maybe you're a little more skeptic. Maybe you're a little bit more of a believer. Maybe you're still on the fence. So let's talk about common experiences people don't realize are shared. So this one's huge for me, because the more I've talked to people and met more people in the paranormal field, and as you guys have listened to me interview people, and I'm sure you've listened to other podcasts too that talk about the paranormal, you're hearing a lot of the same stories, whether it's Bigfoot, alien abductions, hauntings. We don't really, unfortunately, talk to people about river monsters or lake monsters, unfortunately, which I really like to do. I'd really like to talk to people about those, but we just haven't gone into that. We haven't had very many witnesses come forward about that, especially here in Texas. But here's some things that we can talk about, right? Woods going silent, the feeling of being watched, seeing movement just out of view, like a shadowy movement, something just moved, and you're looking, you're like, wait, something just moved. Animals acting strangely. I mean, I've noticed a lot of people recently have been reporting their pets are seeing things, right? Sudden dread with no clear cause, or hearing your name called, which has happened to me multiple times. So let's talk about the woods going silent. Now that can be almost any of this paranormal stuff, but mainly it seems to happen with Bigfoot, because predators around, and it might not be Bigfoot. I mean, it could just be that a predator's there, maybe a mountain lion, maybe a coyote, maybe something else, a wolf in the forest, and the animals go quiet because they don't want to be known, right? So they're basically going quiet because there's some kind of predator around. But us, maybe the hair on the back of your neck starts to stand up, and you take notice, especially if you're in the woods a lot. You're like, wait, something's just not right. But a lot of people share that same sentiment. when you hear them talking about Bigfoot or anything like that. Anything with cryptids, right? Bigfoot, Dogman, anything like that. Or maybe the woods are haunted. Maybe you're in a location where, tragic things have happened in the woods. And you're, walking around and you're like, okay, there's just something not right about this place. The feeling of being watched. And I can go with hauntings, I can go with Bigfoot, or anything else paranormal, pretty much. That feeling of being watched, and you're looking around, and you're going, "What in the world?" I just feel like I'm being watched, and that happens a lot in the woods. It's creepy sometimes when that happens. Seeing movement just out of view, that happens with Bigfoot activity or any cryptids. That also can happen with ghost hunting and stuff like that. Animals acting strangely. My dogs, a couple of my dogs, Mr. Zeusy, and I'm pretty sure my other dogs also see him. I don't think Mama does, but I think I know, like Allie, our old lab, she used to freak out. Hair on the back of her neck and all down her back, her cackles would completely stand up. And one day she was in the kitchen and she barked her way out of the kitchen into the mud room where the laundry room was. And I'm like, what the heck? And she would not come out of there. She was terrified, right? And so I grabbed a K2 and I literally traced out the outline of a person. And it wasn't anything bad. It was just, I believe it was one of the entities that lived in that house with us. And they were protective, but she was very sensitive to them. I don't think the cats really pick up on it too much, but I know other people do have cats that pick up on the paranormal. Birds can sometimes pick up on it and stuff like that. Sudden dread with no clear cause. Maybe you've gone into a location where something bad happened and that energy is just left. It's not necessarily a ghost or a haunted location, but maybe you've gone into a location where somebody was murdered or something tragic happened to somebody. It doesn't even have to be a murder, but the energy is left. That negative energy is left, or it could be a positive energy too. I don't want to be all about the negative. Something's happened. Let's just put it that way. Something's happened in that location, and that energy is left there. And you walk in, you just pick up on it, right? You walk in, maybe you just feel sad or whatever. Some people get emotional, start to cry, and there's no reason. Everybody's like, I don't know why you're crying. There's no reason for you to be crying. Hearing your name called, again, that's mainly hauntings, or basically ghosts, if you will. Maybe sometimes demons. Where you'll basically be in a location, maybe you're by yourself, maybe you're with your friends, like I talked about earlier, where you hear like Matt, and you're looking around and you're going, what? And everybody's looking at you like, what? What are you talking about? We didn't say anything. I'm like, you didn't whisper? They're like, no, I didn't whisper. You're the only one who heard it, and you're scratching your head going, what in the world? And then you're listening back to your audio recorder if you're lucky enough to have audio or video running, and you're listening back for it on audio and video to see if you can hear it. There's nothing there, and you're like, am I going crazy? So, and then the more I've talked to people, a lot of people experience that. They hear a voice or they hear a whispery, and you can't make out what it is, or maybe you hear your name. That's very common, believe it or not. So at this point, I'm going to invite you guys to basically leave a comment down below. Again, there's no judgment. This is a safe spot. Please do not put anything negative in the comments. Please don't beat up on anybody. I want people to feel safe coming on here and commenting. And if you don't feel safe commenting, I will leave my email down below as well. You guys can contact me privately. Again, you don't need proof. You don't need to convince anyone. Just tell us what happened. Where were you? How old were you? What details still won't leave you alone? I want to know. So, all right, guys. I believe that most people don't believe in the paranormal. They just don't trust themselves enough to say it out loud. What experiences have you had and never told anybody? Again, tell us down below. And at this point, I will catch you guys on the next one.